Team 315. Today we're going to be interpreting data, and in order to interpret this data, we're going to be finding mean, median, mode, and range for a data set. So I've already gone ahead and written out our data set. So here are our numbers. We notice we have some whole numbers and some fractions. And we're going to take these numbers and we are going to plot them on a number line. Notice how my number line already has arrows on each side. We have tick marks and labeled tick marks. So we'll get started. All right, so here we have 2. I'm going to indicate that with an X. 3, again, indicate with an X. Keep going, 2.5, 2, 3.5, 2, 1.5, and 3.5. So now we have our plotted points, and we're going to be able to use the mix of this data and our line plot in order to help us answer some questions about our data set. So we're going to be looking at the mean, median, and mode and range for this data set. So first off, we're going to start with the mode. So the mode is the number that occurs the most often. Now we don't have to plot the points to know this. We can just look at the data set, but it does make it a lot more simple if we look at our line plot, because we can see which one occurs most often by the amount of X's there are. There's only one data point or one number that has 3 X's. That means it occurs 3 times in the data set. So our mode, we know, will be 2. 2 occurred the most often. So that is our mode. Next up, we're going to be looking at the range. The range of a data set is the distance between the largest number and the smallest number. So we can tell that our largest is 3.5 and our smallest is 1.5. So we will have to subtract to find the range. So we will take our smallest amount from our largest amount. So our largest is going to be 3.5, and our smallest is 1.5. And we will be subtracting. So 1/2 minus 1/2 is 0. So they cancel each other out. And then we have 3 minus 1 is 2. So our range is actually 2 as well. So those two are going to be the most straightforward. And we're going to get into a bit more tricky with the mean. So that's our average. We have talked about this before, but we're going to just go through it together. So again, our mean is our average. So to find average, you have to do 2 steps. First off, we need to add up all the data points. And when we find the sum of all the data points, then we will divide it by the total number of points there are. Since that is 8, we'll be then dividing the sum by 8. So let's show our number sentence. So first off, we can just use our plotted points here to help us go through. So each X gets written 1.5 plus 2, 3 times, plus 2 plus 2 plus 2.5 plus 3 plus 3.5 plus 3.5. Okay, so when we add these up, I like to add up my whole numbers and then add up my fractions. So when I add up 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, I get 18. And when I add up my fractions, 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/2, that gives us 2. When I add them up, I get 20. Okay, so that's our first step for finding the average. We need to find this, since we found the sum of all of our data points, now we need to divide that sum by the total amount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So our next step will be dividing by 8. So we have 20 divided by 8. we use partial quotients. We know that 8 times 2 is 16, so we put that here. We subtract, and we have 4 remaining. Now, 8 does not go into 4, so that's going to be our remainder. 2 remainder 4. We can also write this as a fraction. And our fraction will be 2. 4 will be our numerator. Our remainder becomes our numerator. And our denominator will be 8. We know that we can reduce this because they're both, the numerator and the denominator, are divisible by 4. So our final answer will be 2, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Our final answer then for our mean will be 2.5. That is our average, our mean. And the last one we'll be doing is our median. That's our middle number. So in order to find our median, we are going to have to line up all of our data points. All of our data points in order from least to greatest. So it's going to look similar to this first step for the mean, except instead of adding, we're just lining them up. So let's line up our numbers, our data points. We have 1.5, 2, 2, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 3.5. So that is our data points lined up from least to greatest. So what I like to do is start from both ends and work our way in. We're getting towards the middle. Uh-oh. We have come to a point where our middle number is going to be between 2 and 2.5. So we have to figure out what number comes between 2 and 2.5, that middle number in between there. So if we would have had an odd number of data points, it would be simple because just the number in the middle would be there because we had an odd number of data points. But since we have even, we have to find the average between 2 and 2.5. So in order to do that, we have to add them up and then divide them by the amount of data points, which would be 2. So remember we found average? We're just doing that again here. It's just a double practice. So what we need to do is we need to add up 2 plus 2.5. 2 plus 2.5 will give us, 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 1.5. Okay, so, and our next step will be to divide. So we have our 4.5 divided by 2 data points. So it's going to be, well, we're using fractions, so we'll write it out with 4.5 divided by 2. Now, in order for us to do the division and using the reciprocal, we're going to have to make 4.5 into an improper fraction. And in last week's video, we practiced that. So 4 times 2, remember our whole number times our denominator, is 8 plus 1. Our new improper fraction will be 9 halves. And it's divided by 2. Now, in order to use the reciprocal, we keep switch and flip. So we'll keep our 9 halves. We'll switch the symbol to multiplication and flip 2. 2 over 1 is the same, so 2 over 1. So our new problem will be keep 9 halves, switch, multiply, and flip. 2 over 1 becomes 1/2. And then we just multiply across. 9 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. And that is our answer. We can simplify it because we know 4 goes into 9 How many times? 2 times, with 1/4 remaining. So our answer will be 2 and 1/4. That will be our middle median number. All right, thanks guys.